Welcome to the sleepy underworld, a place where romance blooms, magic sparkles, and timeless fairy tales are reimagined for the dreamers of today. From heart-stirring romances to spellbinding adventures, every story is a soothing escape into a realm of love, wonder, and charm. So curl up, press play, and let us carry you away to the land of dreams. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. We'd love to know in what part of the world you are watching and what is your favorite tip for a good night's sleep. Thank you for watching and enjoy the video. I own you, and yet I would die for you. The silver blade pressed against my palm, drawing a thin line of crimson that spilled onto the ancient marble floor. I didn't flinch. Pain had become my closest companion these past 5 years, ever since the vampires had claimed our world as their own. Do you accept the terms of this blood oath, human? Lucian's voice echoed through the cathedral-like chamber, smooth as velvet, yet sharp as the knife he held. I raised my eyes to meet his, midnight blue with flecks of silver that seemed to capture the light of the torches surrounding us. His beauty was devastating, cruel in its perfection. High cheekbones, full lips curved into a perpetual half-smile, and skin like polished alabaster. The rumors hadn't done him justice. Lord Lucian Aramis was every bit the predator they claimed, and more. I accept, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My life for theirs. His smile widened, revealing the sharp tips of his fangs. Your life, your blood, your body, everything you are now belongs to me, Isolde Black. The way he said my name sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. I hated him. I hated every vampire who had stolen our world, who had forced humanity into servitude, who had killed my family and countless others. But I hated myself more at that moment because I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward him despite everything. And in return, I said, you will spare the resistance members you captured. You will grant amnesty to any human who lays down their weapons. Lucian nodded, his eyes never leaving mine as he pressed his own palm against the blade. His blood was darker than mine, almost black in the dim light. When he clasped my hand in his, our blood mingling, I gasped at the sensation, like electricity racing through my veins. The blood oath is sealed, he murmured. You are mine now, Isolde, my bride, the symbol of peace between our kinds. I pulled my hand away, wiping it against the tattered remains of what had once been my battle gear. I agreed to be your bride in name only. Don't confuse that with submission, vampire. He laughed then, a rich sound warming the cold stone around us. Oh, my fierce little warrior. I wouldn't dream of it. The chamber they led me to was unlike anything I had seen since the fall. Luxury didn't begin to describe it. Tapestries of deep crimson and gold adorned walls of polished black stone. A massive four-poster bed dominated the space, draped in silks that shimmered in the firelight. Your quarters, said the servant, a human girl no older than 16 with the telltale puncture marks on her neck. A willing donor. My stomach turned. I'm to be kept in a gilded cage, then. She bowed her head. Lord Lucian thought you would be more comfortable here than in the cells below. How considerate of him, I muttered, running my fingers over the silken bedspread. And where is my husband? The council required his presence. He will join you later. After she left, I spent hours examining every inch of the room, searching for weaknesses, escape routes, anything I could use. The windows, tall, arched things of stained glass, were sealed with magic that repelled me like an invisible wall. The door was heavy oak, reinforced with iron bands, and locked from the outside. I was trapped. Properly, thoroughly trapped. Exhaustion eventually won out over my determination. I sank onto the edge of the bed, allowing myself a moment of weakness as tears threatened to spill. I had led the resistance for 5 years. I had watched friends die, had killed vampires with my own hands, and had survived on hope alone when food and supplies ran scarce. And now I had traded my freedom to save the lives of my people. Had I made the right choice? Or had I just damned us all by aligning myself with the enemy? The door swung open without warning, and Lucian stood framed in the doorway. He had changed from the ceremonial black robes into something more casual, if you could call a silk shirt that probably cost more than most humans earned in a year casual. "You look troubled, bride." He closed the door behind him, the lock clicking into place. I stood, squaring my shoulders. "Don't call me that. It's what you are." He moved toward me with that inhuman grace all vampires possessed, like a liquid shadow. "Would you prefer wife?" "I'd prefer Isolde." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could smell him. Sandalwood and something metallic, like blood, but richer. "Very well, Isolde. Are your accommodations suitable?" I laughed bitterly. "For a prisoner? They're luxurious." "You're not a prisoner." His eyes darkened. "You're my consort. A pretty word for the same thing." I folded my arms across my chest. "What happens now, Lucian? You've made your point to your council. You've bound the resistance leader to you. What more do you want?" He studied me with those unsettling eyes. "Want? I want peace, Isolde, the same as you." Peace through subjugation isn't peace. And peace through the extermination of my kind isn't peace either. Yet that was your goal, wasn't it? He moved to a small table and poured dark red liquid from a crystal decanter. "Your resistance has killed hundreds of vampires. After your kind killed thousands of humans." My nails dug into my palms. "Don't pretend you're the victims here." He handed me a glass. "Wine. Real wine, not blood. I thought you might need it." I took it cautiously, sniffing it before taking a small sip. It was wine. Rich, complex, better than anything I'd tasted since before the fall. "Thank you," I said reluctantly. Lucian poured himself a glass of something else, something darker. "The history between our species is complicated. More so than you know. But that's a conversation for another time." He raised his glass. "To new beginnings." I didn't raise mine in return. "To survival." His lips quirked up at one corner. "Always the pragmatist." He sipped from his glass, watching me over the rim. "You should rest. Tomorrow we'll be trying for both of us." "Why?" "Because tomorrow I present you to the court as my bride." His expression turned grim. "And not all of my kind are pleased with my choice." Sleep eluded me that night, despite the comfort of the bed, the first real bed I'd slept in for years. When dawn broke, painting the stained glass windows with bars of colored light, I was already awake, sitting by the fire and planning. The blood oath prevented me from directly harming Lucian or plotting against him specifically. I had felt the magic burn through me when we clasped hands. But it said nothing about gathering information, learning the layout of this fortress, finding weaknesses in the vampire hierarchy. I might be bound to Lucian, but my loyalty remained with humanity. A knock at the door preceded the entrance of 3 servant girls, each carrying various items: clothes, jewelry, cosmetics. "Lord Lucian requests your presence at court in 2 hours, said the eldest, a woman perhaps a few years older than my 27. "We're here to help you prepare." I wanted to refuse, to show up in my tattered resistance gear just to spite them all. But that would be childish, and worse, it would be wasting an opportunity. Court meant vampires. Vampires meant information, Information meant power. So I allowed them to bathe me in scented water, to dress me in a gown of midnight blue silk that matched Lucian's eyes, a coincidence that didn't escape my notice, and to adorn me with silver jewelry set with sapphires. When they finished, I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Gone was the resistance leader with dirt-smudged cheeks and determination in her eyes. In her place stood someone who looked like she belonged in this world of luxury and blood. The thought made me sick. Lucian arrived to escort me himself, dressed in formal attire that accentuated his broad shoulders and lean strength. He stopped in the doorway, his eyes widening slightly as he took me in. "You look..." He paused, seeming to search for the right word. "Domesticated?" I suggested bitterly. His lips quirked. "I was going to say regal, like the queen you are now." I snorted. "I'm no queen." "But you are." He offered his arm. "You are consort to the Lord of House Aramis, the first house of the Vampire Council. That makes you royalty in our world." I ignored his arm. I didn't ask for a title. Few who deserve power seek it. He lowered his arm with a slight shrug. "Come, we shouldn't keep the court waiting." The walk through the fortress, palace really, gave me my first real glimpse of vampire society. It was nothing like the savage, blood-soaked chaos I had imagined. Vampires moved through the halls with purpose, discussing politics, art, and science. Human servants walked freely, without chains or obvious coercion. Some even smiled at their masters. "Surprised?" Lucian murmured, noticing my expression. "Confused," I admitted. "This isn't what I expected. The world isn't as black and white as your resistance paints it." We reached a set of massive double doors, carved with intricate scenes of battle and feasting. Guards in black armor stood at attention, bowing deeply as we approached. "Remember," Lucian said quietly as the doors opened. "Show no fear. They can smell it." The vampire court was a riot of color and sound. Hundreds of them, dressed in their finest, gathered in a cavernous hall with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. Thrones of ebony and silver stood on a raised dais at the far end, 7 of them in total. Every eye turned to us as we entered. Conversations died. Music faded. The silence was absolute. And then the whispers began. Human. Resistance leader. Blood oath. Abomination. Lucian's hand found the small of my back, not guiding but supporting. I hated that I leaned into it, just slightly. We walked the length of the hall, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain every vampire could hear it. Perhaps they could. The dais loomed closer, and I could now see the 6 vampires who occupied the other thrones. 3 men and 3 women, each with the same ageless beauty as Lucian, but with none of his warmth. Wait, warmth? When had I started thinking of this monster as warm? "Lord Aramis," said the central figure, an ancient vampire with skin like parchment and eyes like frozen blood. "You honor us with your presence, and with such interesting company." Lucian bowed, and I followed suit, though it pained me to do so. "Hi, Lord Corvinus. May I present Isolde Black, leader of the human resistance, and now my consort by blood oath." Murmurs rippled through the court. "Bold move, young Aramis," he said. "Very bold. Some might say foolish." "Some lack vision," Lucian replied smoothly. "The war between our species has gone on long enough. This union represents a new beginning." "Or the beginning of the end," said a female vampire. "Bringing our greatest enemy into our midst? Have you lost your mind, Lucian?" I bristled at being spoken about as if I wasn't there. "I can hear you, you know." The court fell silent again, shock rippling through the crowd. Apparently, humans did not speak unless spoken to here. The female vampire's eyes blazed with anger. "You dare?" "She dares because she is my equal," Lucian interrupted, his voice like steel. "The blood oath binds us as one. Any insult to her is an insult to me, Lady Bathory." Bathory, a name I knew from resistance reports. One of the cruelest vampires, responsible for the deaths of hundreds of human women. My hands itched for a weapon. Corvinus raised a withered hand. "Peace, Elizabeth. Lord Aramis has made his choice, however, unconventional." His eyes fixed on me. "Tell me, human, do you enter this union willingly?" "I enter it to save my people," I answered honestly. "Whether that's willing depends on your definition." A chuckle rippled through the crowd, surprising me. Perhaps vampires appreciated candor more than I'd thought. Corvinus's lips twitched. A diplomatic answer. "Very well. The Council acknowledges this blood oath and the protection it extends to the human resistance fighters. But know this, Isolde Black. If you betray our trust, if you attempt to harm any vampire under our protection, the oath will not save you or your people." I inclined my head. Understood. The formalities continued. Pledges of loyalty, ritual exchanges that meant nothing to me but seemed to satisfy the court. Throughout it all, Lucian remained at my side, a steady presence I found myself grudgingly grateful for. When it was over, when we finally returned to my chambers, I collapsed onto a chair, exhaustion washing over me. "You did well," Lucian said, pouring me another glass of wine. "Better than I expected." I accepted the wine with a nod of thanks. "I've faced worse than a room full of judgmental vampires." "Have you?" He settled into the chair opposite mine, studying me with those unsettling eyes. "What is the worst thing you've faced, Isolde?" The question caught me off guard. I took a sip of wine to buy time, considering my answer. "Watching my brother die in my arms after a vampire raid," I said finally. "He was 16. Something flickered in Lucian's eyes. Pain, perhaps, or recognition. "I'm sorry. Are you?" I leaned forward. "It was your kind who killed him." "Not all vampires are the same, just as not all humans are the same." He set his glass down. "The raid that killed your brother, when was it?" 3 years ago, a village near the western mountains." Lucian's expression darkened. "That wasn't sanctioned by the Council. That was the work of rogues, vampires who reject our laws." I laughed bitterly. "And that makes a difference to the dead?" "It should make a difference to the living." He stood, pacing to the window. "The Council has been trying to rein in the rogues for years. They're as much our enemies as they are yours." I wanted to argue, to maintain the simple hatred that had fueled me for so long. But doubt crept in, unwelcome and persistent. If he was lying, he was the most convincing liar I had ever met. "Why me?" I asked suddenly. "Why choose the resistance leader for your political statement? There are easier ways to make peace." Lucian turned back to me, his expression unreadable. "Because you're the only human who has ever killed an elder and lived to tell the tale." My blood ran cold. "How did you know that was me?" "I've been watching you for longer than you realize, Isolde." His voice dropped lower. "Your courage, your determination, your refusal to surrender even when all hope seemed lost. Those are rare qualities in any species." I swallowed hard, uncomfortable with the admiration in his voice. "So this is... what? Respect?" "Partly." He moved closer, and I fought the urge to retreat. "But it's also strategy. The resistance follows you. The vampires respect power. By binding myself to you, I bridge 2 worlds. At what cost? I whispered. His eyes searched mine. That remains to be seen. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into a month. Life in the vampire stronghold settled into a routine that was almost normal. Lucian kept his distance, physically at least, sleeping in adjacent chambers and never pressing for more than my company at court functions and private meals. Our conversations grew longer and deeper. I learned about vampire history, the centuries they had spent in hiding, their near extinction at the hands of humans in the Middle Ages, and their eventual decision to claim dominance before they were wiped out completely. He learned about the resistance, our strategies, our victories and failures, our desperate hope to reclaim a world that had been taken from us. And somewhere along the way, the lines began to blur. I found myself looking forward to our evening discussions, to his dry wit and surprising insights. I caught myself watching him when he thought I wasn't looking, admiring the grace with which he moved, the intelligence in his eyes. It was dangerous, this softening. I knew it, but I couldn't stop it. The change in our relationship didn't go unnoticed. Whispers followed us through the court, some approving, others poisonous with hatred. Lady Bathory in particular watched me with murder in her eyes, and I made sure never to turn my back on her. One evening, as the autumn wind howled outside the fortress walls, Lucian returned to our chambers earlier than usual, his expression troubled. "What's wrong?" I asked, setting aside the book I'd been reading, a history of vampire-human relations that contradicted everything I'd believed. He poured himself a glass of blood without answering immediately. When he turned to me, his eyes were dark with worry. "There's been an attack on a human settlement near the eastern border. 30 dead, including children." My heart clenched. Vampires? Yes, rogues, led by a former lieutenant of mine. He drained his glass in one swallow. They left a message, for me. What did it say? Blood cannot be diluted without weakening the strain. His jaw tightened. It's me they're targeting. My decision to align with you, with humanity. I stood, moving to his side without thinking. "This isn't your fault." "Isn't it?" He set the glass down with enough force to crack it. I knew there would be opposition. I didn't think they would go this far. "Then we fight back." I said it without hesitation, surprising myself. "We find these rogues and we stop them." Lucian looked at me, really looked at me, with an intensity that made my breath catch. "We?" I hesitated only a moment. "Yes. We. Your enemies are killing my people. That makes them my enemies too." Something shifted between us in that moment. An acknowledgement of shared purpose, of alliance beyond the forced terms of our blood oath. "I'm sending a hunting party at dawn," he said. "Elite warriors, trackers who can follow the rogue's trail. I want to go with them." He shook his head immediately. "Too dangerous." "I've been fighting vampires for 5 years," I reminded him. "I know their weaknesses better than your warriors do." "And if you get yourself killed, what happens to our alliance then?" His voice roughened. "What happens to—" He stopped abruptly. "To what?" I pressed. His eyes met mine, and the emotion in them floored me. "To us," he said simply. I didn't know how to respond to that, to the implication that there was an us beyond political necessity, to the way my heart raced at the thought. "I can take care of myself," I said instead. "I know you can." He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek in the lightest of touches. "That doesn't mean you should have to." I leaned into his touch before I could stop myself. His skin was cool against mine, but not cold, never as cold as I had expected a vampire to be. "Let me do this," I said softly. Let me prove that our alliance can work both ways. He searched my face for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. On one condition. What? I come with you. Dawn found us at the eastern gate of the fortress, a party of 10, 8 vampire warriors, Lucian, and myself. I wore battle gear again, not the finery of court, and the familiar weight of weapons at my hip and across my back centered me. The vampires regarded me with mixtures of curiosity, respect, and suspicion. I ignored them, focusing instead on the task ahead. Lucian gave the order to move out, and we set a punishing pace through the foothills, following the faint trail left by the rogue vampires. I kept up easily, my years with the resistance having hardened me to long treks and difficult terrain. By midday, we reached the site of the attack, a small farming community reduced to ash and blood. Bodies lay where they had fallen, some partially burned, others drained completely of blood. I knelt beside the smallest one, a child no older than 5, and felt the familiar rage rise within me. This was never sanctioned, Lucian said quietly, coming to stand beside me. This is not how we feed, not how we live. I looked up at him, searching his face for lies and finding only grief and anger that mirrored my own. Then why do your rogues do it? Power. The thrill of the kill. His hands clenched at his sides. Some vampires believe humans are nothing more than livestock. The council has outlawed such thinking, but laws are only as good as their enforcement, I finished for him. He nodded grimly. Come, the trail leads north. We buried the dead before continuing, a task the vampire warriors undertook without complaint to my surprise. One of them, a female with hair like spun gold, worked alongside me to dig the graves. You're not what I expected, she said, as we lowered a body into the earth. Neither are you, I replied. She offered a small smile. Mira, House Corvinus. Isolde. House. I hesitated, still uncomfortable claiming Lucian's name as my own. House Aramis, she finished for me. We know who you are, Oath Bride. The question is whether you know. I frowned. What do you mean? But Lucian called for us to move out before she could answer, and the moment was lost. We tracked the rogues into the mountains as night fell. Vampires saw perfectly in darkness, but I struggled to keep my footing on the treacherous slopes. Lucian stayed close, occasionally steadying me with a hand at my elbow or the small of my back. We're close, he murmured as we reached a narrow pass between 2 peaks. They're making for the old fortress beyond the ridge. I nodded, tightening my grip on my weapons, a silver-edged sword and a crossbow loaded with wooden bolts. Standard resistance issue for vampire hunting. Lucian eyed them with a raised brow. Planning to use those on me if I turn on you? Would they work? I countered. His lips quirked. Probably not. I'm older than I look. How old is that, exactly? Old enough to remember when humans feared the dark for good reason. Before I could press for a more specific answer, Mira returned from her scouting position ahead. My lord, they've set up defenses around the fortress. At least 20 rogues, maybe more. Lucian frowned. More than we anticipated. We should return for reinforcements, suggested one of the other warriors, a giant of a vampire with scars crisscrossing his face. No time, I said. They'll be gone by then, or they'll attack another settlement. What do you suggest then? Lucian asked me, surprising the others with his deference to a human. I considered the problem. A diversion. Something to draw them out while a smaller team infiltrates the fortress. And what would make a suitable diversion? Mira asked. I smiled grimly. Me. The plan was simple but dangerous. I would approach the fortress alone, posing as a lost human traveler. The rogues, unable to resist fresh blood, would pursue me into the narrow pass where Lucian and the others would ambush them. Meanwhile, Mira and 2 others would circle to the fortress's rear entrance. "This is madness," Lucian growled as I prepared to descend from our hidden position. "They'll tear you apart before you reach the pass." "I've outrun vampires before." I checked my weapons one last time. "Besides, I thought you said I was special." His eyes flashed with something fierce and possessive. "You are, which is why I won't lose you to this foolish gambit." "You won't lose me." The words came more easily than I expected. "I promised to be your bride, remember? I keep my promises." Before he could argue further, I slipped away, making my way down the rocky slope toward the fortress looming in the moonlight. As I approached, I deliberately made noise, stumbling and cursing as if lost. It didn't take long before I spotted them, their shadows detaching from the fortress walls, moving with predatory grace. "Well, well," called a voice that raised the hair on my neck. "What have we here? A human, all alone in the mountains?" I whirled, feigning surprise and fear. The vampire who had spoken stepped into the moonlight, tall, gaunt, with eyes like burning coals. Behind him, others emerged from the darkness. "Please," I begged, backing away. "I'm lost. My caravan was attacked. I'm just trying to find the main road." The leader laughed. "Oh, you found something much more interesting than a road, little human." I turned and ran, not having to fake the surge of adrenaline that propelled me forward. Behind me, I heard their excited cries as they gave chase. The thrill of the hunt was already in their blood. The pass loomed ahead, dark and narrow. I pushed myself harder, feeling the presence of the vampires closing in. One leaped ahead of me, cutting off my escape, his fangs bared in a feral grin. "Going somewhere," he hissed. I skidded to a halt, drawing my sword. "As a matter of fact, yes." His expression shifted from triumph to confusion, and then to shock as an arrow sprouted from his chest, missing his heart, but sending him stumbling backward. Lucian and his warriors descended from the cliffs above, moving with lethal precision. The fight was brutal and chaotic, vampire against vampire, with me in the middle, my silver blade flashing in the moonlight as I fought alongside my former enemies. It should have felt wrong. It didn't. I lost track of Lucian in the melee, focusing on survival as 2 rogues cornered me against the cliff face. I dispatched one with a bolt through the eye, but the second knocked the crossbow from my hands and lunged for my throat. I ducked, bringing my sword up in an arc that would have severed a human's head, but only opened a deep gash across the vampire's chest. He howled in pain, staggering back before charging again. This time I wasn't fast enough. His weight slammed into me, driving me to the ground. Fangs snapped inches from my throat as I struggled to hold him off, the sword trapped between us. "Isolde." Lucian's voice cut through the chaos, desperate and enraged. The weight suddenly lifted as the vampire was torn away from me. Lucian stood over him, his eyes blazing with a cold fire I had never seen before. With one fluid motion, he drove a hand into the rogue's chest and ripped out his heart. "Are you hurt?" He was at my side in an instant, his hands checking for injuries, his voice rough with concern. "I'm fine," I gasped, allowing him to pull me to my feet. "The others?" "Dealing with the stragglers. Mira should be in the fortress by now." As if summoned by his words, Mira appeared at the mouth of the pass, her face grim. "My lord, you need to see this." The fortress's interior was a chamber of horrors. Humans hung in various stages of exsanguination, some still alive but barely. Other bodies lay discarded on the floor, drained completely. But it was the center of the chamber that drew our attention. There, on a throne of bones and iron, sat Lady Bathory, her red lips curved in a smile that chilled me to the core. "Lucian," she purred. "How thoughtful of you to join us. And you brought your pet. How sweet." Lucian pushed me behind him, his posture shifting to one of coiled tension. "Elizabeth, I should have known you were behind this." She laughed. "Behind it? I created it. This glorious return to our true nature." She gestured to the hanging humans. "We are predators, Lucian, not politicians, not peacekeepers. We are meant to rule through fear, not compromise." "You're insane," he said flatly. "The council will have your head for this." "The council is weak, just like you've become." Her eyes flicked to me with undisguised hatred. "Mixing your blood with hers, diluting our strength. You were meant to be the strongest of us, Lucian, the heir to the first house, and look what you've reduced yourself to, a human's lapdog." I stepped out from behind Lucian, my sword ready. He's twice the leader you'll ever be. Bathory's eyes widened, then narrowed with rage. "You dare speak to me, cattle?" "I dare a lot of things," I replied, moving to stand beside Lucian rather than behind him. "Including this." I lunged forward, my silver blade flashing toward her heart. She was fast, inhumanly so, but I had spent years learning to anticipate vampire movements. The blade sliced across her arm as she twisted away, drawing a hiss of pain. "Kill them!" she shrieked to her remaining followers. "Kill them all!" The battle erupted again, more desperate this time. Lucian fought at my back, our movements synchronized as if we had trained together for years. Where I was vulnerable, he defended. Where he left an opening, I covered. Lady Bathory circled us, waiting for her chance. When it came, a momentary separation as I dispatched a rogue and Lucian turned to help Mira. She struck. She moved too quickly for me to track, a blur of pale skin and crimson silk. One moment she was yards away. The next, her hand closed around my throat, lifting me off the ground. "I'm going to drain you dry," she whispered, her fangs extending. "And I'm going to make him watch." I clawed at her hands, struggled for air, for purchase, for anything that might free me. My vision darkened at the edges. "Elizabeth!" Lucian's voice cut through the fog descending over my mind. "Release her or die where you stand." Bathory laughed. "You won't kill me, Lucian. You don't have the—" Her words ended in a gurgle as a silver blade erupted from her chest. Not from Lucian, but from Mira, who stood behind her with grim satisfaction. "For the record," Mira said as Bathory crumpled to the ground, "he absolutely would have killed you." Lucian caught me as I fell, cradling me against his chest as I gasped for air. "Isolde, look at me. Stay with me." "Not going anywhere," I managed, my voice raw. "We had a deal." Relief flooded his features, followed by something deeper, more intense. Before I could identify it, he lowered his mouth to mine. The kiss was gentle, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I didn't. Instead, I wound my arms around his neck and pulled him closer, surrendering to the feelings I had been fighting for weeks. His lips were warm. How had I ever thought vampires would be cold? And they moved against mine with a tenderness that made my heart ache. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, I saw the same wonder in his eyes that I felt in my soul. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you stood before the council and called them out on their hypocrisy," he murmured, his forehead resting against mine. I laughed shakily. "I've wanted to kill you since the moment you conquered my world. Funny how things change." "Do they?" He pulled back slightly, searching my face. "Have your feelings changed that much, Isolde? Can you truly stand beside a vampire, beside me, without hatred in your heart?" It was the question I had been asking myself for weeks. The answer came more easily than I expected. "I hated what I thought you were," I said quietly. "A monster who saw humans as nothing but food. But you're not that monster, are you?" He shook his head slowly. "No more than you're the bloodthirsty terrorist some of my kind believed you to be." Around us, the battle had ended. Mira and the others were freeing the surviving humans, their actions gentle and respectful. Vampires helping humans. Humans accepting that help without fear. A new beginning. Just as Lucian had promised. "What happens now?" I asked, still held in the circle of his arms. His eyes, those midnight blue eyes that had haunted my dreams, held mine steadily. "That depends on you. The blood oath binds us, but it doesn't dictate the nature of our bond. That choice is ours. And if I choose to make this real..." I pressed my palm against his chest, feeling the slow, steady beat of his heart. Not just political, not just strategic, but real. His hand covered mine. "Then I would be honored, Isolde Black, because I have chosen you already, in every way that matters." In that moment, surrounded by the aftermath of violence but filled with the promise of peace, I made my choice. "I choose you," I whispered against his lips. "Not because of an oath or political necessity, but because of who you are." His smile was radiant, transforming his features from merely beautiful to breathtaking. "And I choose you, Isolde, now and for all the centuries to come." 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of what was now truly our chambers, watching the sun set over the mountains. Winter had come, blanketing the landscape in pristine white that glittered like diamonds in the fading light. Strong arms encircled my waist from behind, and I leaned back against Lucian with a contented sigh. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured, his lips brushing the sensitive spot just below my ear. "Everything that's changed." I turned in his embrace, looping my arms around his neck. 3 months ago, I would have died rather than stand in a vampire's arms. And now... His eyes glinted with mischief and desire. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. It wasn't an easy path we had chosen. The integration of our two societies faced resistance from both sides. Humans who couldn't forget their losses, and vampires who couldn't surrender their superiority. But slowly, village by village, city by city, we were building something new. The council had been reformed after Bathory's betrayal, with Lucian taking Corvinus's place as High Lord. His first act had been to outlaw blood farms and hunting humans, establishing a system of willing donors who were well compensated and treated with respect. My resistance fighters had become peacekeepers, working alongside vampire warriors to maintain order and protect both species from those who would return to the old ways. And I had become something I never thought possible, a bridge between worlds, respected by vampires and humans alike. The Oath Bride, they called me. The human who tamed the most powerful vampire lord and, in doing so, changed the course of history. "Do you ever regret it?" Lucian asked, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "The blood oath. All of this." I shook my head without hesitation. How could I regret finding peace? Finding you? He smiled, but something lingered in his eyes. A question yet unasked. I waited, knowing he would speak when ready. "There's something I haven't told you," he said finally. "Something about the blood oath." I tensed slightly. What about it? It's more than just a political binding. His hands found mine, our fingers intertwining. It's an ancient ritual, rarely used because of its power. When two souls are bound by blood willingly, truly willingly, it creates a connection that transcends ordinary bonds. "What are you saying?" I whispered, though some part of me already knew. "I'm saying that I felt it the moment our blood mingled. The potential, the possibility." His eyes held mine, vulnerable in a way I rarely saw him. "If you desire it, the blood oath can make you like me. Not fully vampire, but no longer fully human either. A hybrid with the strengths of both." I stared at him, momentarily speechless. "You mean immortality?" "A form of it. A life measured in centuries rather than decades." His thumb stroked across my knuckles. "It would mean you wouldn't have to age while I remain the same. It would mean not having to say goodbye." The thought stole my breath. Not death, but its opposite. An eternity with Lucian, an eternity to build the world we had started to create. "How?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "A second ritual, the completion of what we began." His gaze was solemn. "But Isolde, it must be your choice. Freely made, with full understanding of what you'd be giving up." "And what would that be?" "The simplicity of humanity, the certainty of an end." He brushed a strand of hair from my face. "I won't lie to you. It's not an easy existence. There is beauty in mortality that the endless years can dim." I considered his words, the weight of the choice before me, to remain human, to live out my natural life with him, and then leave him to face eternity alone. Or to step into the unknown, to embrace a new form of existence with all its complexities. "I don't need to decide now?" I asked. "No, you have time." He pressed his forehead to mine. "I would wait a lifetime for your answer, Isolde." I smiled, turning my face to capture his lips in a kiss that spoke of promises and possibilities. "You won't have to wait that long. But tonight?" "Tonight?" His voice roughened as my hands slid beneath his shirt, tracing the cool perfection of his skin. "Tonight, let's just be what we are. A vampire and a human who found love when they should have found hatred." I pulled him closer, reveling in the way his body responded to mine. "Show me what forever could feel like." His answer was a kiss that burned through me like wildfire, consuming everything but the certainty that I had found my place in the world. Not as a resistance fighter, not as a political pawn, but as a woman who had dared to love her enemy and, in doing so, had changed the fate of two species. As Lucian carried me to our bed, his eyes darkening with desire and tenderness, I knew that whatever choice I made about immortality, I had already claimed a kind of eternity in his arms. "I own you," he whispered against my skin, echoing the words of our first meeting. "And yet, I would die for you." I pulled him down to me, my heart overflowing with a love I had never thought possible. "And I you," I breathed. "In this life and whatever comes after." The blood oath that had begun as chains had become wings, lifting us beyond the limitations of our separate worlds into something new, something revolutionary. Not subjugation, not submission, but unity, born of choice and sealed with love.